Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the main event. You're back again with me, Daniel.
And Aaron.
Aaron, we're reaching the halfway mark. We're at Group D now. So we've had and released the first three groups podcasts now. Starting to get into the flow of things. Lots of players on my radar for sure now that I hadn't really considered before doing this. So hopefully we've helped everyone listening. Feel free to let us know how good or bad we are doing. We take criticism quite well.
All we're doing is reading out facts.
Yeah, just facts and the occasional opinion. But we've got, for me, maybe the most exciting group. There are two groups that are a bit tasty for me, and this is certainly one of them. Not necessarily from, a fantasy perspective, but just from the games. I cannot wait for this group at all. Especially how me and you this season, outside of the English, well, for me, outside the English teams, you wouldn't anyway, are supporting Atalanta. So go Atalanta. Just for the way they play, for our boy Joseph Ilicic, giving us that 48-point haul last year, forever in your debt. Currently injured, but never mind. We'll get onto that later, or lacking fitness at least. The first team of this group is Zayaks. So Ajax have had a bit of a butchering sort of since the summer, really, with Ziyech going to Chelsea, Van der Beek going to Man United, Serginho Dest going to Barcelona, Veltman at centre-back, I think went to Southampton, or Brighton. He went to Brighton, sorry. Was the right coast. And Babel, who didn't have a bad season at all last year, he's went back from the loan. They brought in a Brazilian winger, Anthony. They've also brought in Davy Klaassen. He's a real genuine now in centre midfield. They signed a new young player called Kudus, central attack midfield. And they've got another few players. Stecklenburg from Everton, but they're not really that important to this game because they just haven't been playing. They're in excellent form as you'd think, winning all their games. I still think they're fifth in the Eredivisie, but they just haven't played as many games. Sorry, my bad. They've lost the last game. They lost the last game 1-0. Just misread that there. They seem to be pretty fixed on their team with who they're playing generally, which is nice for us to sort of try and anticipate. Onana's the goalkeeper, Mazrou's the right back, Schurz and Blind play centre back. They've swapped a little bit for the centre back, the left back Tagliafico, because he got sent off in the first game. So Martinez came in, got a goal, and then got hooked straight away right back out for Tagliafico again. Tagliafico, a bit of a hero for us last year at the beginning, wasn't he, Aaron?
Yeah, so he was like my go-to left back. And when we started talking about it, I was like, you need to go Tagliafico.
It's very first player that was signed. I think it was cheap, and didn't he get 18 points first game or something?
Yeah, he scored, got an assist and clean sheet.
So we will never disrespect Tagliafico. Yeah, class. Wonderful Tagliafico. In midfield, again, fairly consistent. Alvarez, Promes, and then they've sort of swapped between Kudus and Gravenberch, but Kudus did get injured. He's been out since the 2nd of October, so I imagine Kudus would be the starting central midfielder. There's no return date yet, so if he's not in, it'll probably be Gravenberch. And then up front, it's Anthony and Tadic, either side of Labiad up front. They are consistent with a 4-3-3. That's how they play. As far as goals go, these boys are sharing them out. I don't know if anyone scored more than one. Mm-hmm. Anthony scored more than one. Just having a look there. He's a 6 million forward. He's playing on the right wing, so it's up to you whether you want a right winger as a forward for a start. But I think it's 6 million if you are looking to go for certain price points and you need a low-priced forward. I think Anthony is a fantastic shout. Like I say, new signing, so he's going to get minutes, 2 goals in his last 4 games, and he might facilitate others around you. Labiad, however, at 6 million, is an out-of-position midfielder. So he's been playing striker but he's actually a midfielder on the game at 6 million. So, you know, we've been talking before on previous podcasts about how you've got like certain players that are 6 million and we're not entirely sure how they've got that price point. And you've got holding midfielders. If like, did you say Kante is 5.5?
Yeah.
So obviously we haven't done Chelsea yet, but Kante is 5.5. So would you rather Kante or pay the extra 500,000 to have a striker, but counting as a midfielder? It's something to think about. And also to keep a clean sheet. You'll get a clean sheet point for playing up front. Doesn't make any sense. Obviously, Tadic is their most well-known player. 2 goals and 1 goal and 2 assists in the last 4 games. He's pricey. It's obviously up to you price point wise if it's right for you. I don't think it's right for me. And I'm pretty confident he's a forward on the game this year as well, which is a no from me. I'd rather go for Anthony between the two, being a considerably cheaper player in the same position. And currently, if you're looking at how they'd matched up against each other, there's like barely any difference. So I'd probably go with Anthony between the two. But yeah, those are the main positions that I'd seen. And there's one other little gem as well, and that is Alvarez. So Alvarez is a 4.5 million defender who has played the last 4 games in midfield. So Ajax have 2 out of position players. They've got Labiad, a 6 million midfielder who's playing up front, and Alvarez, a 4.5 million defender playing in midfield. These are players that I'm seriously looking at because they facilitate everything else. And if you're looking to bring in, like, have a punt, they're the type of punts that you want. People playing a wildly out of position. Now, that doesn't mean it always works. I had Marcus Llorente last year, and he played better in midfield. Sometimes, you know, I think FPL got sucked into a little bit this year with Burke for Sheffield United playing up front. And people like, he's a £4.5 million midfielder. He's playing up front. Get him in. But is a £4.5 million midfielder likely to do well as a forward, or is it just still, you know, 2 points or whatever? Like we say, this game works differently where you kind of don't want any dead weight in your team. But this kid's proved he can score. I know it's only 1 in 4, but it's still a goal, and he can still be a threat playing up front. And in this group, this group is right for the pickings when it comes to forward players, because I'm not confident a single one of these teams can defend, not one of them. So, I mean, if you want a £6 million midfielder that's in an offensive position with creative players around him that can exploit weak defenses, like, that's the difference for me. And Ajax are still a capable attacking team. It's not like they're not a team that struggle to make chances, and they're not in a group where they're going to need some really smart centre forward play to work their way around like a low block. They're playing against a Liverpool defence who play in the opponent's half, an Atalanta defence who almost like conceding goals so they can see the challenge of being forced to score 4 or 5. And Midtjylland, who are like, okay, like, I don't think they're going to come out and play. Like, and that might be the trap, actually. You know, you might go, oh, Midtjylland, get them in on that. Like, you might have more joy playing your forwards against Liverpool and Atalanta, even though they're the 2 clear favourites for the group.
Yeah, it's true. Ajax, I mean, they're used to selling all their best players and then producing a team that's just as good. And they've been doing it for so long. So this is one of them teams where there's going to be a hidden gem, and it's just about jumping on that player first before everyone else jumps on it. I feel
more comfortable that Klaassen hasn't been playing because he's not a good footballer. The quality of player that they've lost is a little troubling. Like, Ziyech, Van de Beek, criminal that he's not starting for Manchester United. He's like, I think he's played 16 minutes this season and been their best player.
Yeah.
And then Serginho Dest, obviously such a good upcoming right back, but it's not a big problem. That I think Mazrou looks like he's slotted in quite comfortably. He's got himself an assist already. He might be worth looking at. But I just think was for price point, it's probably a no-brainer to be going with out of position, low-cost players.
Yeah, I agree.
Atalanta are in, our Italian correspondent at the Gazzetta.
So people know Atalanta from last year. Their mentality is attack, attack, attack. We're going to outscore you. That is the way that they basically win. Well, that was a Michael Owen quote there. If you outscore the opposition, you'll win.
Oh, I love Michael Owen quotes. Keep them coming, Aaron. It makes you sound more professional when you speak nonsense.
So their whole team, even their defenders, are only there to attack. So I wouldn't get any of their defenders in the hopes that they'll keep clean sheets. Just don't even be cute. If you have to choose between Gym City and Hatterboy, just don't. They're both the same price.
Don't select Gym City. We had him in, right? We had him in.
To be fair,
we had a whirlwind of a ride for those last few games.
To be fair, that if he had stayed on the pitch for one more minute, that gamble would have paid off massively.
59 minutes or whatever it was.
A 3.9 million defender getting a clean sheet and then getting subbed off. That would have been unreal. But anyways, the number one player for them right now is Alejandro Gomez. He is unbelievable. Like, I've been a massive fan of his for a while, and I'm just happy that other people are now seeing how good he is, because he's not a young player, but he is one of the best on the ball, and he's just all over the pitch. Like, he's just everywhere. His fitness levels are unbelievable. And in his last 3 games, because that's all they've played, he scored 4 goals and 2 assists. So get him in. I mean,
he's phenomenal.
Criminally, he's a forward this year, which has driven me insane.
I've got issues with this. I've been raging looking at it because it's totally messed up my team.
He's not a forward. In no way is he a forward. But I mean, he did play there in the reset when Ilicic stopped playing. It was him and Zapata up front, but Gomez was more of a winger. Anyways, he wasn't a striker. And Pasalic was the other winger. So it doesn't make sense that they've looked at Gomez and said, you're a forward, but then looked at Salah and Mane and said, you're a midfielder.
Exactly what I was thinking. I don't understand at all. And then even like we look at Ajax, like that Anthony kid, he's a right winger. He plays a less of a forward position than Salah and Mane do. So I don't understand like what the bias is.
Salah plays further forward than
Firmino.
Like, yeah. Anyways, we'll get to Liverpool next. And so Gomez, he is someone that if you need to free up funds in your forward spots, Gomez is someone who you need to get in. They play Michelin first. There you go. Enough said.
He's already in mine without hesitation.
You've got Luis Muriel, 2 goals and an assist so far. He was a super sub last year, but I think now that he's spent a year with the Atalanta tactics, I think he's been starting up front with Zapata most games, and so he didn't play against Lazio, but I think that is more so because it's a title rival rather than just Muriel not being good. Anyways, Muriel came on in the 82nd minute, and so he's going to play. He is cheaper than the rest of the forwards. He's actually the same price as Gomez. So if you had to choose between the two, choose Gomez.
Yeah.
Ilicic hasn't played at all since restart. Well, he played in the Champions League when he got us the 48 points, but that was before the lockdown.
Yeah.
Don't fall into the trap of getting him for 9 million. He hasn't played yet.
We got him for 6 or something last year, didn't we? It was something really low.
He was 6.5 last year.
What a player.
So just don't get him yet. Gosens and Hatterbauer, they're players who you need to get in. If you need a defender who isn't above 6 million, who can get you an attack and return, a potential attack and return every game, you need to get them in your team. Gosens has a goal and 2 assists so far this season, and Hatterbauer has 2 goals. Hatterbauer is 5 million and Gosens is 5.5. So
Class.
just, yeah, like you just need to get them in.
As a recommendation, I'd personally, I don't think a lot of people will want to do double up on a Atalanta defense.
I wouldn't suggest that either.
So you're going to have to pick one or the other. For me, I've chosen Hateboer. Look, it can go wrong, obviously, but in my mind, there are 2 reasons. A, he's $500,000 cheaper. $500,000 is precious in this game. But also, you get 3 points for an assist and 6 points for a goal for a defender. Hateboer is more likely to score. So the way like Hateboer gets in the box is like a support striker. It's absolutely ridiculous, his positioning sometimes, whereas Gosens attacks the flank and will play balls in, and he's got a really good like sort of long range shot on him.
Yeah.
Hateboer, for me, is more of a goal threat, so the upside's bigger. They're both obviously, if they're both playing, they've got no competition because Castagne at right wing back got sold to Leicester, and he wasn't even their starting right back anyway. Diallo, the right winger, went to Man United. So
the only threat that I see is that every game so far this season, Gosens has been substituted out around the 75th minute for their new young wing back Mojica. So, and Atalanta don't learn, like they don't play fantasy. The coaches, they don't play fantasy. They just don't understand. Yeah. Every game so far, they've made a substitute, at least 2 substitutes before the 60th minute. So you do run the risk of them, your player only getting 1 point. You run that risk. But with being so attacking, it's kind of unlikely. But Gosens has been substituted every game so far for Mojica.
Yeah, I mean, it might help if you get substituted. This happened. That was that Gym City game last year. It was Paris Saint-Germain, wasn't it? Where you had Gosens.
I had Gosens.
And I had Gym City.
Well, I had Gym City and Gosens.
And then Gosens, obviously they both got, and I had the goalkeeper as well, Sportiello, because he was like 4 million or something.
Yeah.
And what happened, as we all know, is Gym City got subbed off before the 60th minute, so only got 1 point. Then conceded 2 goals, so Gosens kept the clean sheet.
Because he got substituted off before Paris scored, so he kept the clean sheet.
So it can work in your favour getting subbed off, but obviously when you want someone for attack and returns. But I do feel like those wing backs, I think Gosens you might even have swung us there, because I think the wing backs are far more effective in the first hour. Like the last half an hour, I do see them tiring a bit. Just in terms, really quickly, in terms of forwards, Zapata's got 2 goals and 2 assists. Muriel's got 2 goals. But Zapata is more expensive than Muriel. And if I'm going Gomez, Zapata, or Muriel, because they're all forwards on the game, which is why it's stupid, because you're making us choose between the 3, which is stupid. I think Gomez is obviously the better shout. However, they've signed, if you're looking, and this is out of what we've got up to at the minute, the biggest punt of all. They've signed a striker called Lammers. Oh, sorry, he's an attacking midfielder called Lammers. He's a forward on the game at 5 million. So if you're looking to play a 3-5-2 and you want to pile loads of money into your midfield or, have a good balance like that, Lammers came off the bench. In his goal was absolutely quality. Did you see it, Aaron? Where he's like, he's looked to cut inside on his left. He's rolled the ball over his foot like he's playing in central midfield, flicked it round the defender and just put it so beautifully into the bottom corner. It was such a cultured finish and bit of play that he could come off the bench and do something, because he came off the bench in that game and scored in a 5-2 win. That, especially if Atalanta are playing the first game, again, it's more of a risk for the second because you don't want to be putting them in if they're playing on a Wednesday. But if they're playing on a Tuesday and you need a little bit of money and you're thinking of, I'd need just a cheap striker, go with Lammers. I've seen a lot of people go with an Ajax striker for 5 million. I cannot remember his name. Apologies to that striker, no disrespect. I'll try and have a look, see the Ajax striker's name. He's not played a minute, I don't think, this season. He's certainly not started a single game for Ajax. And yet I've noticed that he is quite highly owned. Ajax. Traore. So he's a 5 million forward, 5% owned. My recommendation is if you're not interested in a treble up on Atalanta, swap Traore for this. If you need a 5 million budget player up front, go with Lammers. He might come off the bench. In the moment he came off the bench, he showed that he's got real quality, and he is a new signing this season, so he might get more time. Don't be confused by Miranchuk coming in. That is not the player that we discussed in a previous podcast. We think it might be his brother. He was signed from Lokomotiv Moscow, but it's a different player. Caldara's out with a knee injury. We don't know how long he's out for. So the back three look fairly set. I mean, there is a bit of changing around. Palomino, if you did want to go for a centre-back, would be the one for me. He got 2 assists in the last game from open play.
Well, about him, he's not even in the game.
Is he not even in the game?
He's not.
He is in the game. He is. Is he not under Jay Luis?
Ooh, let's have a look.
His name comes under Jay Luis, and he's 4.5 million.
Well, that makes it confusing. Oh yeah, he is.
No, it's completely necessary. Is that him? Yeah.
Yeah. So they've put Luis as his last name, which is actually his middle name. Yeah, that's stupid.
Do you reckon the people that operate the game are Juventus fans?
I just don't think they watch any other football. Like, I think they were in a hurry and did Atalanta very quickly.
Yeah, I think Palomino's hidden. Gomez isn't in the right position.
That's the thing. Like, Ilicic plays as a striker when he plays, like when he's on. So Ilicic should have been the one who's a striker, not Gomez. Yeah. Anyways,
Aaron, question from me for you. Pasalic, talk to me.
Pasalic is now confirmed. He's a permanent signing. He's someone that they did over the summer, and early bit of business. He was on loan from Chelsea, one of the millions who you probably didn't realize were owned by Chelsea, and he's solid in the fact that he starts most games. He scored the goal against Paris Saint-Germain. He scored multiple goals since the restart, but then again, who in Atlanta hasn't? And for 7.5, he is quite solid. He has taken, I think, like 1 or 2 penalties once Gomez is off the field. He's a good player and has the potential to also play out on the right if they play 3 up front.
Yeah. I've got him in my draft at the minute, 7.5.
He's the more attacking out of the centre mids. Like, the rest of them are just to kind of fill in the spaces when the wing backs attack. So you've got Darun and stuff like that who just kind of sit back. But Malinovsky's the main penalty taker.
Who is Malinovsky?
Yeah, when he's on the field, he doesn't start much, but whenever he's on the field, he takes the penalties.
I think he's only made one start this season. Malinovsky, got an assist in that game.
He always comes on as a sub. He plays every game, but he's a sub for Gomez because Gomez is 35, I think. So whenever Gomez comes off, Malinovsky comes on. That's a basic transfer, a basic substitute.
Fair enough. The only other player really is Sportiello. At $4.5 million, the goalkeeper is cheaper than, I think, another goalkeeper for Atalanta. So he's played since the restart anyway, because I'm sure the other goalkeeper was injured. But he's also started these first 3 games of the season. So don't be fooled by Atalanta's more expensive goalkeeper. He hasn't been starting. Sportiello at 4.5, who's the cheaper of the two, is the one that's been starting. You are incredibly brave. Is he still injured? Yeah.
Yeah, because
incredibly brave. If you go than Atlanta,
the first minute,
because he's not great. Liverpool, again, we'll try and keep this one swift because we're all about Liverpool. Not much transfer business, but it has been effective. Lovren's out. It's for the best, really. Tsimikas in at left back, who may play, may not play. We've got a good friend of ours, Alex, who supports Liverpool season ticket holder. Gets across his from Norway to see Champions League games all the time. He's absolute diehard fan. So probably should talk to him about maybe their rotation risks. Thiago centre mid, we all know about Thiago, world class. And Jota fits into their system perfectly, high pressing, youthful, great on the ball. Thiago and Mane have COVID. Shaqiri doesn't. He had flu-like symptoms, got tested positive, but then retested negative. So I think sticking with a negative, but he's still not very well. They've had a mad start this season, Liverpool. They've played... How many games have they played? They played 8 games, I think. 7 of them have been competitive. And in those 7 competitive games, they've had 3 7-2s.
It's madness.
They've kept 2 clean sheets. One against 10-man Chelsea. And they also kept a clean sheet in a Carabao Cup game against Arsenal. 2 of the 7-2s were in Carabao Cup games against, or just League Cup games, I think it might just be called now, against lower league opposition. Waste of time looking into them. The big games that we're looking at are a 4-3 win to Leeds, the 2-0 win at Chelsea, which I think, to be fair, the Labour 2 until the second half, after the sending off, that really did change the game because Chelsea looked threatening. As in control as Liverpool looked in possession, they didn't look threatening, and Chelsea did, ultimately. The 3-1 win against Arsenal, which, again, a bit crazy because they played so well for so much of that game, and yet they're still probably lucky that they came away with a win because Lacazette will be kicking himself that he didn't get a hat-trick in that game. It's mind-boggling that Arsenal didn't. Not because Arsenal played better than Liverpool. Liverpool were definitely the better team. But just that high line gets them into trouble. As proven, getting beat 7-2 off Aston Villa. And it could have been 8, 9, 10s. It was some of the worst defending I've ever seen. And again, it's been a feature on this podcast before. We've discussed, is Trent Alexander-Arnold the best right back in the world? And we've consistently said no. Kimmich, when playing right back, is considerably better. But Alexander-Arnold's obviously a tremendous attacking asset. And for his age, he's quality. But the kid can't defend yet because he's so young. Like, it's really hard when, he pulls off a world against Barcelona and he sets such high standards getting 14 assists in a season and scoring worldy free kicks. And, people are saying he's the best right back of the Premier League generation for Liverpool. It's like he's 20 or something. It's hard that you get lost in it to overly criticize or overly build him up and say that he's better than what he is. If he wasn't capable of his attacking returns, would people think he's the best right back in the world? Would people think he's in the top 10 best right backs in the world or the top 20? The answer is, for me, clearly no. Obviously, Joe Gomez, people have been bigging him up for a little while. I don't see it personally. I don't think he's got the positional awareness. You can tell he used to be a fullback. It's rare that fullbacks make good centre-backs. It's usually the other way around. A centre-back can make a good fullback.
Sergio Ramos is probably the exception, isn't
yeah.
it? Maldini as well.
I still think Sergio Ramos was a better right back than he was a centre back. Like, if you look at that World Cup, he was unbelievable at right back. Like, he's quality at centre back, but at right back, he's still probably better.
And then you've got Maldini, but that's a topic for another day.
But Maldini's like the best defender of all time.
Ever.
So he can do what he wants. But Maldini went centre back to left back to centre back. So he started as a centre back and a back three.
He can just play defence. He could be a back four by himself.
If he wants, Maldini. Handsome man. And Robertson's looked during a game like the most assured of the back four, yet he's the one capable of an actual howler, like gifting the ball to an Arsenal player. Without Alisson in, they are not the same team at all. Adrian is just mistake after mistake after mistake waiting to happen. He cost them in the Champions League. Last year, he cost them the first goal against Villa, although, let's be honest, none of the team are at it. I do think the 7-2 is fluky, and not from Aston Villa's perspective. I thought they played exceptionally well. I think from the Liverpool mindset, I don't think that'll happen again. But do I think, judging by the recent games, do I think they concede 2s and 3s? Yes.
Especially against the others in this group.
Yes, this group's such an attacking group. And I think they really, really miss Mane. There's a discussion of who's the most important between the three of them, Salah, Mane, Firmino. And a lot of people do think it's Firmino. I think Firmino's the least important of the three. I think Salah's so important for the goal contributions. But Mane's defensive work, the press starts and ends with him. He's such a hard worker. And when he's not in the team, and when an engine and a pride like Jordan Henderson isn't in the team, like Jordan Henderson's not the most talented footballer ever. He's a really talented footballer, but he brings so much more to that team. You look at their statistics without him playing, they're not the same team. So him coming back should share things up, and Mane coming back from COVID should share things up. But I can still see them doing 3-2s and 4-3s.
It'll be interesting to see how Thiago does in this in the midfield, because they've only really played 15 minutes with him, and even then, a second half with them.
45.
And even then, he outpassed the whole of the Chelsea team. But then after that, he unfortunately caught COVID. So it'll be interesting to see what he contributes to the team, because we've only had a glimpse of it. We've not had the full match and a lot of evidence yet. However, he is one of the most owned midfielders in the game so far. He is third in the most owned midfielders.
He's at a good price point, isn't he, Thiago? He's like
6.5.
Yeah. So, that works really well. The one punty player, at the minute, I've got Mane in my team, because Atlanta can't defend either. Ajax don't seem great in defence, and Midtjylland are one of those teams that we're looking at as, potential whipping boys. So Mane is currently sitting in my draft. I also want a high price point midfielder in there if I need to jump on and off based on fixtures. But the other super punt for maybe not for game week 1, but maybe going into it, Might be Joel Matip at 4.5, because I think there'll be a bit of rotation between him and Gomez, and if Gomez keeps on playing as poorly as what he has been, I think Matip will take his place. There's not the much of a muchness, I think, in Klopp's eyes. So that might just be worth holding out on. But even then, I don't think Liverpool are capable of keeping clean sheets at all, especially when Adrian's in goal. And the difference with Liverpool's fullbacks and Atlanta's fullbacks are they've all got equal likelihood of getting assists and goals. Fair enough, Trent's on free kicks, which increases his appeal. But Robertson has had a much better start the season than Trent.
Even
and then you
from
look
the
at
restart.
Yeah, exactly. Even the end of last season. And then if you look at Atlanta's boys, they've been doing fantastically, and they've done fantastically last year. But where the big difference comes is his price. That if you look, I think Hatterbo's 5, Gusson's 5.5, Robbo's 6, and Trent 6.5. What I could do with that other, is there that much of a difference between Hatterbo and Trent on this game in terms of what they're capable of? No, well, look, Hatterbo's got 2 goals this season, and he's playing right wing, and he's a defender on the game. And Atlanta have conceded less goals than Liverpool.
Robertson is the same price as Alexander Arnold. They're both 6.5.
Exactly. So I'm not really. When you look at who else is 6.5, you've got Joshua Kimmich, who's again playing out of position, gets goals and assists. And you've got Sergio Ramos, who's a penalty taker in a group with the least attacking threats. You can't be having 4 £6.5 million defenders. You've got to pick price points. So if I'm looking at Trent, Robbo, Ramos, and Kimmich, Trent and Robbo are the last ones that I'd want out of that. I think Ramos is probably the first, and maybe Kimmich playing higher up the field and being just as proven as the other two to do well. So then I'm looking at, other players that I can get that do the same job as Trent or Robbo, and Hatterbo and Gussons are perfect, especially if $1 million and $1.5 million cheaper. They'll probably all finish on roughly the same amount of points.
Yeah. I think if I had to choose between the two, I would choose Robertson because he's done better since the restart. He's better with no fans. And historically, over the last 2 Champions League seasons, he's outscored Trent. And it wasn't even close last year. I think it was 30 or 40 points in it. I don't know if Trent was injured or something, or if Gomez played right back.
Yeah, Robertson's the better player. Trent's delivery is phenomenal.
And he's English.
But yeah, he's English. He tries a lot of crosses as well. It's not just every one of them's mustard. He puts in a fair amount of crosses. And obviously his free kick taking ability is world class. And he's I think we're being really negative about Trent here, and it's not my intention because he's a fantastic young footballer.
I would love to have him in any team. If I had to create a team from scratch, he would be in my team. We're not saying he's a bad player.
It's just looking at a price point to assets where risk versus reward, it's not something that I massively see until he gets a brace of assists and a free kick goal in there.
Until he plays Michelin.
Like mugs. Who's got Michelin in the first game?
Atlanta.
Why would I? Yeah, I mean, if you want to go with one of the Liverpool fullbacks against Ajax opposed to the Atlanta boys against Michelin,
you've got Michelin next.
Yeah,
they're against Michelin at Anfield in the second game week, and you can make multiple transfers, so it could be worth having them there.
Swapping wing backs here. Yeah, I mean that might be the thing as well. Jumping, I think transfers, unless obviously first and foremost injuries and suspensions, this game's a little different with FPL. We're not looking so much at jumping on form. It might be different this season because it's like every other week, isn't it? Whereas usually there's like, you get weeks gaps. So it's like, well, what's going to happen here? Like the form's really tough to sort of work through.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one very viable tactic this year is to make sure you've got the highest price point in each of the three outfield positions and plan your transfers as best you can to use your 2 free transfers to get the best playing defender, midfielder, or striker in that week. Especially when clean sheets are going to be at such a premium that they're probably going to be differentials. If you've got a Liverpool defender in for that second game, like that 4 points is as good as a forward scoring.
Yeah.
Because there's no bonus points in this game. It's not like FPL where a striker scores and it's like, well, there's 3 bonus points to him.
Mm-hmm.
There are no bonus points like that.
You get rewarded for other factors, which is nice.
Yeah, exactly. That's enough of Liverpool. We all know about them. No one's going to listen to our opinion on Liverpool. They'll just do whatever they want, which is absolutely rightly so. It's their
And
game.
it'll probably still work out because they're that good of a team.
Yeah, right? They're still a phenomenal team. Like I say, I got Mane in.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I'm still going that way. And I think I went for Mane over Salah because Mane is cheaper than Salah by $500,000. Which is how FPL should have went. And also James Milner sometimes does have a little run in the Champions League games sometimes, and he's on pens before Salah. So Salah's not necessarily a stonewall penalty taker, depending on whether Milner's playing.
Yeah.
But we've got the last team of the group, Midtjylland. Want to give a little run through, Aaron?
So, no, I'm going to hold my hands up. I don't know a lot about the Danish Super League. However, they have had like a okay start. They are currently 5th, I believe. But however, something that I want to look at is they had to start from the very, very first Champions League playoffs. They had to go from first round of qualifying, and how they set up during them games. I know it's not the greatest caliber of teams in the playoffs, but they've kept 3 clean sheets through the playoffs, and I think that's more so against the opponents rather than them as a team. But they do sit back, and I think they're a counter-attacking team. So the team, as a result, on the game, very cheap. And I think if you're with this team, I wouldn't bank on a lot of them, but I think that's quite sensible in saying that.
Yeah.
However, if you're wanting them just to punt on like a €5 million player or a 6 million, this team's full of them. And so if you watch their first 2 games, because they're not going to win against Atalanta, they're not going to win against Liverpool. But when people start to come to their stadium, I think there could be a few players in there. Like if there were, I'm not sure, 100% sure who the penalty kick taker is. I don't think
Schultz. Schultz is in the last 4 games. I think they only had 1 penalty in Schultz, who's a defender, at 4.5 million. Is the one that took it. I don't know whether that's, if they do have another penalty taker and they weren't on the pitch. But if you are looking for, if you're looking for a wild ride and live on the edge a bit, and you want to go for a Midtjylland defender, on the off chance that they get a pen, Schultz at 4.5 million, is easily the first choice out of those defenders to go for.
Yeah, they might get 1 goal. But the likelihood is they're going to be defending for their lives. Yeah. So ball recovery points are up for grabs. Save points are up for grabs. I would only use them as an enabler. I wouldn't put them into your tactics. And just have fun with them. I wouldn't get wound up that your Midtjylland player didn't get an attack and return. Just have fun with them. Just be like, you know what? I'm just going to go for a risk. I'm going to have a Sisto midfielder. I'm just going to play him. Don't captain him because then that's just too silly. But yeah, just have fun with it. That's my advice.
Looking at the team that they've got, Sisto obviously they brought in Herg and Krav or Crave. It's hard to pronounce some of these names, isn't it? Especially when being Geordies, we don't even speak very good English. There are a couple of players that have caught my eye. Kajust is, I believe, a defender on the game. He plays in midfield, so he's a 4.5 million defender playing in midfield. So again, it is a holding midfield job, so he might pick up more interception points than normal. Is it a risk of getting minus points if they concede too many? But is maybe, could get a clean sheet. I'm not too sure. If you wanted a bit of a punt there, it's up to you whether you want to go for the out of position defender or Schultz, who's the potential penalty takeout. But ultimately, what are the chances of them getting a penalty in this group? Not overly likely. Dreyer, is that 6 million. He's got a goal and a couple of assists in the last couple of games. That's massive punt. There's one other player, which is Brumado. Now, he might be a trap. I just want to make people aware of him. So he's 4.5 million. He's a forward. He's played 2 of the last 4 games, and he scored in the last game. But he's been playing in the Danish Super League. He's not been playing in those Champions League qualifiers. So the likelihood is he's a young player. I think he's 19 or something. So the likelihood is he'll be sticking to the Danish Super League while Sisto and Dreyer play up front in the Champions League. But he could be the next Haaland at 4.5 million.
We'll ask Cameron.
Yeah, we'll ask Cameron. But I can't, to be fair, I can't see him scoring. Well, you know what? I say I can't see him scoring hat-tricks, but I couldn't have seen Haaland scoring hat-tricks last year until he started doing it, and you're like, oh, what a player.
Yeah.
It's really hard to gauge some of these teams because you just, no one's pretending that we sit here and watch the Danish Super League every week. We don't really know the styles of play. And some of the results that they've had, I'm sure one of the 2-2 draws, they had like 30 shots or something. And only 9 were on target. So they've peppered the goals. Like, what type of teams they're playing against?
Long shots, potentially.
Yeah, they're playing low blocks, they're playing against high presses. Like, we just don't know. But out of that lot, Schultz, 4.5 million defender, penalty taker. Dreyer, 6 million forward, I think he is. As an enabler, only as an enabler. Kajust, 4.5 million defender, playing in midfield. And Brumado, 4.5 million forward. I'd probably go with him over Dreyer because I think Brumado might get a few minutes.
Yeah.
I think if you're looking to play a 3-5-2 and you want to have a cheap forward so that everything else is really strong, Brumado could be a shout. And the young Atalanta forward, trying to remember his name, Lammers.
Oh, yeah.
At 5 million. I think those are your 2 best options that I've done my research on so far. Certainly that we've done in Group A, B, C, or D. And also it helps that, again, these might not be the best players, but I think they're playing against the most open teams.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see... imagine if you're 4.5 million or 5 million striker popped up with a goal out of nothing. And you've allowed that money to facilitate the rest of your team. I mean, I think I'm going for a 3-4-3. But the formations, again, are so wild in this game because it changes. Like, you start with a 3-4-3 and then Mane blanks and you stick in a defender and he gets one. You end up playing a 5-3-2 or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it is what it is.
It's fun.
Gotta just
that's all it is. It's a game. It's fun.
Yeah, I think we should make a podcast team where we just put in punts, just ridiculous players, just to see how it does. Yeah,
Let's do it.
We can make a team of ex-Newcastle players. I think from the previous group we've got Mbemba and Tovan. We've got Remy Cabert,
Demba Ba.
but Genie Wijnaldum. Just putting an ex-Newcastle team. They get absolutely smashed every game. But yeah, looking at it, Midtjylland don't look like they'd be the world's biggest pushovers if we compare them to other teams like Krasnodar, for example, who look fairly dreadful. Yeah, these don't look like pushovers. They're just going to play with a low block, probably get beat a couple of goals a game or something. So it's entirely up to you if you want to go for that and hope to get a pen or whatever. But I think we've named some great 4.5 million option defenders that I'd rather have than this lot. I think the smartest option is that 4.5 million Brumado if you just wanted 14 other really strong players.
Yeah. But happy days. Halfway through the groups.
Yeah, that's us halfway done. So we've got another day of recording at some point for groups E, F, G, and H. Got a little bit more.
So excited.
Well, it's not that. It's just I've still got to actually look at groups F, G, and H. I've done E. But yeah, I'm not locking anything in until everything's done. I can get like a good overview of everything. But yeah, we'll get those out to you during the week as well. Please follow us on Twitter and YouTube. That's where we are mainly at. We're on Spotify as well, but I appreciate in some countries it's really difficult to listen to us on Spotify. Apparently, we've had a couple of things like that. So sorry about that. On Twitter, we are at UCL Fantasy Pod, and on YouTube and Spotify, it's the main event, Champions League Fantasy Podcast. So please give us a like, give us a follow. We'll follow you back. Subscribe, all that boring stuff that every other YouTuber tells you to do. We'll try not to.
It doesn't roll off the tongue for us.
Yeah,
as it does for them.
It's a bit beggy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But has to be done. Click that notification bell. Like we don't already know. Like we don't subscribe to hundreds of other things and they tell us every bloody day. But yeah, just letting you know where we're at. Please get in touch. Let us know what we're doing. And we look forward to having you on for the next podcast as well. So from me and Aaron, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.